What happens when one of television's most respected judges walks onto a morning talk show expecting a friendly conversation, only to be blindsided by a host determined to tear him down in front of millions of viewers? In just 35 seconds, a simple question about success turned into the most explosive confrontation morning television has ever witnessed. And what started as a routine interview ended with security being called, and a global superstar storming off set, leaving audiences absolutely stunned and speechless. Simon Cowell arrived at the studio that morning, expecting what he always expected from morning television: light banter, a few laughs, maybe some questions about his latest projects. He had been a guest on countless talk shows, sat across from hundreds of hosts, and never once had there been any real drama. But today was going to be different. Today, he was sitting down with Lorraine Kelly, and what neither the audience nor Simon himself knew was that Lorraine had decided this interview was going to be her moment to shine, her chance to prove she could rattle even the most unshakable guest in the industry. The studio audience clapped as Simon walked onto the set, flashing that familiar smile as he settled into the bright orange chair across from Lorraine. Sitting alongside her on the panel were two of her regular contributors, journalist Amanda Davies and lifestyle expert Ross King. Both of them seemed excited to have Simon there, smiling warmly as he sat down. The energy felt good. It felt normal. "Simon, welcome, welcome," Lorraine said, her voice bright, but with an edge that Simon didn't quite catch at first. "So lovely to have you here." "Thanks for having me," Simon replied, adjusting his position in the chair and smoothing down his shirt. "Always nice to be here." "Oh, I'm sure it is," Lorraine said, and there was something in the way she said it that made Amanda glance sideways at her. "I'm sure you love coming on shows like this, getting to talk about yourself for a bit." Simon laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Well, that's usually how interviews work, isn't it?" "Is it?" Lorraine shot back, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you've made quite the career out of talking about yourself." The shift in tone was sudden and jarring. The warmth that had filled the studio just moments ago evaporated instantly. Simon's smile became more uncertain. He glanced at Ross and Amanda, as if trying to gauge whether this was some kind of bit they'd planned without telling him. "I'm not sure I follow," Simon said carefully. "Oh, I think you do," Lorraine pressed on. "Every interview, every appearance, it's all about Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell the judge. Simon Cowell the mogul. Simon Cowell the man who decides who gets to be a star and who doesn't. Must be exhausting being you." There was a ripple of uncomfortable laughter from the audience. They weren't sure if they should laugh or not. Ross King cleared his throat. "Well, Lorraine, I think Simon's been very successful, because he knows talent when he sees it," Ross offered, trying to steer things back to neutral ground. "Does he?" Lorraine turned to Ross briefly before swiveling back to Simon. "Or does he just know how to create drama? How to manufacture moments that get people talking?" Simon's expression had cooled considerably. "If you have a problem with me, Lorraine, perhaps you should just come out and say it instead of dancing around it." The audience went quiet. Ross King shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Amanda's eyebrows shot up. The atmosphere in the studio had completely changed. What had started as a friendly morning chat show segment was morphing into something else entirely. Something darker and more confrontational. Simon's smile faltered just a bit. He sat up straighter in his chair, his body language shifting from relaxed to defensive. "I'm sorry, what?" "Oh, don't play coy," Lorraine continued, leaning forward with an intensity that seemed to come out of nowhere. "You know exactly what I mean. You've spent decades now telling people they're not good enough, that they don't have what it takes, crushing dreams left and right. And for what? So you can feel powerful? So you can sit behind your desk and play God with people's lives?" The audience was dead silent now. Some of them exchanged glances with each other, clearly uncomfortable with where this was heading. This wasn't what they'd signed up for when they'd come to watch a morning talk show taping. Simon blinked, genuinely confused about where this was coming from. His agent had assured him this would be a light, promotional appearance. Nothing heavy, nothing controversial, just a chance to chat about his latest projects and maybe share a funny anecdote or two. Lorraine, I think you might be misunderstanding what I do. I give honest feedback to people who ask for it. That's the whole point of these shows. People audition knowing full well what they're walking into. Honest feedback, Lorraine repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She sat back and crossed her arms, her expression one of barely concealed contempt. Is that what we're calling it now? Because I call it cruelty. I call it someone who gets off on making people feel small. I call it bullying dressed up as entertainment. Ross King tried to interject, his voice nervous and uncertain. Lorraine, maybe we should... No, Ross, Lorraine snapped, not even looking at him. Her eyes remained locked on Simon like a predator watching its prey. I think it's about time someone said this to his face. Someone needs to hold him accountable. Don't you agree, Amanda? Don't you think it's time someone called out this behavior for what it really is? Amanda looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Her eyes darted between Lorraine and Simon, clearly struggling with how to respond. She hadn't signed up for this either. None of them had. I think Simon's been very successful at what he does. I mean, you can't argue with the results he's achieved over the years. Successful at being mean, Lorraine interrupted, her voice rising. Successful at tearing people down. Successful at making millions off the pain and humiliation of others. That's not something to be proud of, is it, Simon? Is that what you tell yourself when you go to bed at night? That you've been successful? Simon's expression had changed now. The friendly demeanor was completely gone, replaced by something harder, more guarded. His jaw was tight, and his eyes had narrowed. You know, when I agreed to come on this show, I thought we were going to have a conversation. An actual conversation between two professionals. I didn't realize I was walking into an ambush. I didn't realize you'd invited me here just so you could attack me in front of your audience. An ambush? Lorraine laughed, but it was cold and harsh. Oh, please. You can dish it out, but you can't take it. Is that it? You can tell a young girl she's not pretty enough to make it in this industry. You can humiliate a nervous teenager who's just trying to follow their dream. You can crush someone's spirit on live television. But the moment someone questions your methods, the moment someone dares to challenge you, you fall apart? You play the victim? I have never said anything like that, Simon said, his voice firm. And I think you know that. What you're doing right now is twisting things to fit some narrative you've decided on. Am I? Lorraine leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. Because I've watched your shows, Simon. We all have. And what we've seen is someone who seems to take genuine pleasure in humiliating people. The audience was completely silent now. You could have heard a pin drop. Ross King was staring at his hands. Amanda looked mortified. That's not fair, Simon said, and there was real frustration in his voice now. Those people come on those shows knowing exactly what they're signing up for. They want honest opinions. They want to know if they have what it takes. And yes, sometimes that means telling them things they don't want to hear. But that's not cruelty. That's honesty. Honesty, Lorraine scoffed. You keep using that word like it justifies everything. But here's the thing, Simon. There's a difference between being honest and being nasty. And you've made millions being nasty. I've made millions finding talent, Simon corrected her, his jaw tight, his voice taking on an edge that wasn't there before. I've made millions creating opportunities for people. I've launched careers. I've changed lives. How many careers have I launched? How many people are living their dreams right now, at this very moment, because I saw something in them that nobody else saw? Because I was willing to take a chance on them? Because I gave them a platform when every other door was closed to them? Oh, here we go, Lorraine said, rolling her eyes dramatically and throwing her hands up in exasperation. The savior complex. Here comes the part where you try to convince everyone that you're actually doing a public service, that you're some kind of hero. You're not a talent scout, Simon. You're not discovering people. You're a bully with a checkbook. You're someone who dangles success in front of desperate people and then makes them jump through hoops for your amusement. That's ridiculous, Simon said, his voice rising now. That's absolutely ridiculous and insulting. To me, to the people who've worked with me, to everyone who's been on those shows. Amanda finally found her voice, speaking up in a shaky but determined tone. Lorraine, I really think this is getting out of hand. I think maybe we should take a step back here and... Stay out of this, Amanda, Lorraine snapped, her head whipping toward her colleague with such ferocity that Amanda actually flinched. This is between me and Mr. Cowell here. This doesn't concern you. It concerns all of us, Amanda said quietly, but Lorraine had already turned back to Simon, dismissing her completely. Simon stood up then, and the movement was so sudden it made everyone jump. You know what? I don't need this. I came here as a guest, and you've done nothing but attack me since I sat down. Sit down, Simon, Lorraine commanded, her voice sharp. We're not finished. Yes, we are, Simon said. I'm not going to sit here and let you insult me on national television. National television? Lorraine laughed again. Oh, that's rich. You mean like all those people you've insulted on national television over the years? What's wrong, Simon? Don't like being on the receiving end? Ross King stood up now too, trying to play peacemaker. Look, everyone, let's just take a breath here. This has clearly gotten heated, and maybe we should... Sit down, Ross, Lorraine barked. This is my show, and I'll run it how I want. Your show? Simon said, his voice rising, echoing through the studio. Is that what this is really about? You wanted to make a name for yourself by going after me? You wanted a viral moment? You wanted something that would get people talking, get you trending on social media, make you relevant again? Well, congratulations, Lorraine. You got it. You absolutely got it. But at what cost? At the cost of your credibility? At the cost of your professionalism? Don't you dare try to make this about me, Lorraine shot back, standing up now too so they were both on their feet, facing each other across the coffee table like two fighters in a ring. This is about you and your ego and your complete inability to handle criticism. This is about you being confronted with the truth about who you really are and not being able to deal with it. Criticism? Simon's voice was loud, now projecting across the entire studio, reaching every corner. The audience members in the back rows could hear every word perfectly. You haven't offered criticism, Lorraine. Criticism is constructive. Criticism is thoughtful. Criticism involves actually engaging with what someone does and offering reasoned analysis of it. You've done nothing but launch personal attacks since the moment I sat down. You've made assumptions about my character, my motivations, my intentions. You've accused me of things that aren't true. There's a difference between criticism and what you're doing, and if you were half the journalist you think you are, if you had even a fraction of the professionalism you claim to have, you'd know that. The audience gasped audibly. This was getting intense. This was beyond anything they'd ever seen on a morning talk show. Some of them looked excited, thrilled by the drama. Others looked deeply uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and glancing at the exits. Lorraine's face went red, a deep crimson that spread from her neck to her cheeks. Her hands were shaking slightly, whether from anger or something else. It was hard to tell. "How dare you," she said, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "How dare you come onto my show that I've built, that I've worked for, and speak to me like that? Who do you think you are?" "How dare you," she said, her voice shaking with anger. How dare you come onto my show and speak to me like that? How dare I? Simon looked incredulous, his expression a mix of disbelief and frustration. How dare I? You invited me here, Lorraine. I didn't show up uninvited. I didn't barge onto your set demanding airtime. Your people called my people and asked if I'd be a guest on your show. They told me it would be a friendly interview, a chance to talk about my projects, maybe share some behind-the-scenes stories. And I said yes, because I thought it would be nice. I thought it would be a pleasant way to spend a morning. I thought I'd get to have an actual conversation with you. But clearly, you had other plans. Clearly, you had this whole thing mapped out in your head. This whole confrontation. You wanted to be the person who took down Simon Cowell. You wanted your moment in the spotlight, and you didn't care how you got it or who you hurt in the process. Amanda stood up, putting her hand on Lorraine's arm. Lorraine, please, let's just... Lorraine shook her off. You know what your problem is, Simon. You think you're untouchable. You think you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, and nobody can call you out on it. And you know what your problem is? Simon fired back. You're jealous. You sit here on your little morning show, interviewing celebrities, asking them about their favorite recipes and their new haircuts, and you resent people like me who've actually built something significant in this industry. The audience gasped again, louder this time. Ross King put his head in his hands. Jealous? Lorraine's voice was shrill now. You think I'm jealous of you? Of what? Your cold heart? Your inability to connect with people on a human level? Your pathological need to put others down to make yourself feel big? I've had enough of this, Simon said, pulling off his microphone pack. This is absurd. You're absurd. Don't you walk away from me, Lorraine demanded. We're in the middle of a conversation. No, we're not, Simon said, dropping the microphone onto his chair. We stopped having a conversation about 10 minutes ago. This turned into something else entirely, and I'm not interested in participating. Lorraine pointed her finger at him. You walk off this set, and everyone will know exactly what kind of coward you are. Simon stopped, turning back to face her. A coward? I've sat here and listened to you berate me, insult me, and attack my character for the better part of 15 minutes. I've tried to defend myself, tried to have a rational conversation, and you've shot down every single attempt. If anyone looks bad here, Lorraine, it's not me. Ross King tried again. Simon, mate, maybe just sit back down and we can all... No, Ross, Simon said, his voice calmer now, but no less firm. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is done. I'm not going to give her any more ammunition. Ammunition? Lorraine practically shrieked. As if you need me to make you look bad. You do that all on your own. You're unbelievable, Simon said, shaking his head. Absolutely unbelievable. You know, I've done thousands of interviews. Thousands. And I've never, not once, been treated with such hostility and disrespect. Maybe that's because nobody else has had the courage to tell you the truth, Lorraine shot back. The truth? Simon laughed, but there was no humor in it. You wouldn't know the truth if it hit you in the face. This whole thing has been about your ego, not mine. You wanted to take down the big bad Simon Cowell. Make yourself look tough and fearless in front of your audience. Well, mission accomplished. You've made yourself look like a bully. I'm the bully? Lorraine looked around at the audience, at her panelists, as if seeking validation. Did everyone hear that? He's calling me a bully. Amanda spoke quietly. Lorraine, I think maybe he has a point. Not you too, Amanda. Lorraine spun on her. I thought you of all people would understand what I'm trying to do here. What are you trying to do? Amanda asked, her voice gentle but confused. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're attacking a guest for no reason. No reason? Lorraine's voice was getting higher and more strained. He's made a career out of crushing people's spirits. He's also made a career out of discovering incredible talent, Ross King chimed in quietly. Look, I'm not saying Simon's perfect, but this This isn't right, Lorraine. Lorraine looked betrayed. You're both supposed to be on my side. There shouldn't be sides, Simon said. This is a talk show, not a war. Oh, don't get philosophical on me now, Lorraine snapped at him. Save your wisdom for someone who cares. Clearly, that's not you, Simon replied. Which is fine, but I'm leaving. He started walking toward the edge of the set. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every second of this disaster. Security, Lorraine called out suddenly. Don't let him leave. We're still recording. Simon stopped and turned around, his expression one of complete disbelief. Are you serious right now? You're trying to keep me here against my will? We had an agreement, Lorraine said. You were supposed to be here for a 30-minute segment. That agreement went out the window when you decided to turn this into a character assassination, Simon replied. I don't owe you anything. 2 security guards had appeared at the edge of the set, looking extremely uncomfortable with the situation. Don't just stand there, Lorraine shouted at them. Stop him. The security guards looked at each other, then at Simon, then back at Lorraine. One of them spoke up. Ma'am, we can't actually force him to stay if he wants to leave. This is my show, Lorraine yelled. I'm telling you to stop him. Lorraine, Ross King said, standing up and walking over to her. Stop. Just stop. This is embarrassing. Let him go. Embarrassing? Lorraine turned on Ross. What's embarrassing is everyone taking his side. Nobody's taking sides, Amanda said, also standing now. But you can't force someone to stay if they want to leave. That's not how this works. Simon was already walking off the set now, the security guards stepping aside to let him pass. Lorraine watched him go, her face a mixture of anger and something else, something that looked almost like panic, as if she was only just now realizing how badly this had gone. Fine, she shouted after him. Leave, run away. That's what people like you do when you can't handle the heat. Simon didn't even turn around. He just kept walking, his posture straight, his head held high. The audience sat in stunned silence. Some of them looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. A few were whispering to each other, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Lorraine stood in the middle of the set, breathing hard, her hair slightly messed up from all the gesturing she'd been doing. Ross and Amanda stood a few feet away, both of them looking deeply concerned. Well, Lorraine said, her voice shaky as she tried to regain some composure. I think that showed everyone exactly what kind of person Simon Cowell really is. But the audience didn't react the way she clearly expected them to. There was no applause, no agreement, just an awkward, heavy silence. Ross King spoke carefully. Lorraine, I think we need to go to a commercial break. No, Lorraine said stubbornly. We're going to continue. We have a show to do. Lorraine, Amanda said gently. Please, let's just take a break. Give everyone a chance to process. Lorraine looked at her 2 panelists, then at the audience, then at the cameras. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Something that might have been realization or regret. But then her jaw set and her expression hardened. Fine, she said curtly. Take a break. But when we come back, I want to talk about what just happened here. I want to make it very clear that I stand by everything I said. Ross and Amanda exchanged worried glances as the director called for a commercial break. The cameras stopped rolling, and the studio lights dimmed slightly. In those moments after the cameras stopped, Lorraine stood alone in the middle of the set. The audience was filing out for the break, murmuring to each other. Ross and Amanda had stepped away, talking quietly to each other with concerned expressions. Someone from the crew approached Lorraine cautiously. Are you okay? Lorraine spun on them. Of course I'm okay. Why wouldn't I be okay? That was just, pretty intense, the crew member said carefully. It needed to be intense, Lorraine insisted. Someone needed to say those things to him. But even as she said it, there was a tremor in her voice that suggested maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to understand that this hadn't gone the way she'd planned. Meanwhile, backstage, Simon was already in his dressing room, gathering his things. Members of the production team had followed him, apologizing profusely, but Simon was gracious, even in his anger. "It's not your fault," he told them. "You didn't know she was going to do that. Nobody could have predicted that." One of the producers spoke up nervously. "Is there anything we can do? Any way to fix this?" Simon shook his head. "I don't think there's anything to fix. What happened, happened. It's on camera. The whole world is going to see it. The only thing you can do now is damage control on your end." "We're so sorry, Mr. Cowell," another producer said. "This has never happened before. Lorraine's never done anything like this." "Well, there's a first time for everything," Simon said, slipping on his jacket. "Look, I don't want anyone here to lose their jobs over this. This was Lorraine's choice, not yours. But I won't be coming back on this show. Ever." The producers nodded, understanding completely. "We don't blame you." Simon finished gathering his things and headed for the exit. As he walked down the corridor toward the parking lot, he could hear the sounds of the show gearing back up for the next segment. He wondered briefly what Lorraine would say when the cameras started rolling again, how she would try to spin what had just happened. But ultimately, he decided that wasn't his problem anymore. Back in the studio, the audience was returning to their seats. The crew was preparing to go live again. Ross and Amanda had returned to their positions on the panel, both of them looking apprehensive about what was coming next. Lorraine sat in her chair, her hands folded in her lap, her expression determined. When the director counted down and the cameras came back on, she looked directly into the lens. "Welcome back," she said, her voice steady. "As you saw before the break, Simon Cowell has left the building. Quite literally, as it turns out. He couldn't handle a few tough questions, so he walked out." Ross King shifted in his seat, but didn't say anything. Lorraine continued, "And I want to be very clear about something. I don't regret a single thing I said. I think it's important that people in positions of power, people who have influence over others, be held accountable for their actions. And if that makes me controversial, so be it." Amanda Davies spoke up then, her voice quiet but firm. "Lorraine, with respect, I'm not sure it was just tough questions. I think it went beyond that." Lorraine's eyes flashed. "Beyond what? Beyond what's acceptable? Is it not acceptable to challenge someone about their behavior?" "It's acceptable to challenge," Ross said carefully, "but there's a way to do it. And I'm not sure that was—" "Oh, don't tell me you're on his side too," Lorraine interrupted. "It's not about sides," Amanda said. "It's about professionalism. And I think as a show, as a team, we need to think about how that appeared to viewers." Lorraine opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, her earpiece crackled. Someone from the control room was clearly speaking to her, though the audience couldn't hear what was being said. Her expression changed, becoming tighter, more controlled. "We're being told we need to move on to our next segment," she said stiffly. "We'll be right back with more after this." The cameras cut away again, and in that moment, sitting there on the set with her panelists looking uncomfortable and her audience uncertain and her guest gone, Lorraine Kelly finally seemed to grasp the full magnitude of what had just occurred. But by then, it was far too late. The damage was done. The moment was captured, and the world would be watching.